All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Abundance Podcast. So, here with us today, we have a very, very special guest. He's an author, apostle, a philanthropist, a real estate investor, and much, much more. And he's done some very special things. So, I think it's going to be a very interesting podcast. So, what's up, Jared? How are you, man?
Hey, good morning. Doing great. Glad to be on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. So, why don't you start by introducing yourself and tell a little bit about what you're doing right now?
So, thanks for the intro. My name is Jared. I guess the way to sum it up is I'm interested in regional transformation and whatever that takes to transform that particular region. So people, sometimes ask me, well, what are you? Are you an accountant? Are you a lawyer? Are you a real estate investor? They're trying to like, what job are you? And I have to respond, my job is to transform a region. So that means I need teams of different skill classes to transform a region into the better version of itself that oftentimes the region knows what it should look like, but just can't. So I come along as an assist to help the destiny that's over a region come to fruition. So that's my job.
Right. So, like I said, pretty unusual job, and not a lot of people are doing this. So, can you tell us a little bit about the project that you're doing right now in Kenya?
I've got a regional transformation project in the county of Trans Nazoya, and it involves basically some of my local friends I've been working there with for the last 18 years. We sat down and had a strategy session and said, what does this region need? We said, road. It's obvious, roads. If you drive there and it rains, you're not getting anywhere. It's mud. And so think about where you lived and said, oh, it's raining today. I can't sell my shipment of goods that I made and I manufactured. I can't get them to market. You would laugh. You're like, rain? Well, I would just drive through the rain. But they don't have good roads on all the side roads. The main roads are okay. It's all the auxiliary roads that are not. So if you lived in your town, you're like, hey, I think we need some roads. Again, all this is not rocket science. It's evident to anybody living in these regions. So we said, hey, we'll do roads. Secondly, that they're having an above normal rate of maternity deaths dying on the way to the hospital in delivery. They're like, hey, we need more ambulances. Like, yes, you do. And we need urgent cares that are smaller facilities that are farther out that will help facilitate these women not dying. It's like, yes, you do. And then we need a new, larger regional hospital. Yes, you do. And then the last one, they said we grow 80% of the nation's food product, which is maize, in this county. This county is the breadbasket of the entire nation. So our current strategy is we gather all the maize, we put it on trucks, and we drive it for 14 to 15 hours all the way to the coast. We mill it there, and then we ship it back. And we lose, I don't know, an above normal percentage of loss due to rot, just losing it off the truck, the expense of the gas to get it there and back, and then the cost of milling it somewhere else. And we're all like, hey, we should probably build a food mill right here and just keep the difference. Look at all that profit you're throwing away on unnecessary expenses. So I don't claim to be very smart. I just am a good listener. And I'm like, hey, let's do that. So that's the project in a nutshell with some housing and some different things. But those are the three major categories of the $25 million project. And again, I met with the governor there, and he has a 25-page manifesto. In America, you don't use that term. That's what bombers write when they blow stuff up. But English back cultures, they have manifestos, which means business plan. They also have schemes, which in America is criminal activity. You're scheming as a crime. But in England, a scheme is a plan. Well, I guess it's a plan, and it doesn't have that negative connotation. So I read the schemes and I read the manifestos, and I agreed. We had came to the same conclusions. His was a very formal, well-written document, 25 pages. I read the whole thing. So when I met with him, I was fully armed with the information and said, "Hey, I agree with your vision. Let's do your plan."
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm working with Citibank bankers to get the 25 million from their ESG allocations, but we're in the middle of a banking crisis. So I have to change, adapt. Maybe the money will come through that way. Maybe it won't. I'm not sure, but we're pressing forward in faith and moving forward anyways, attracting the money as you go. So you don't always just sit on your hands waiting for money. Sometimes it takes an active move of faith that attracts the money because you're moving forward, not waiting, saying, I can't do anything because I don't have any money. You can do
Mm-hmm.
a lot with no money. Sometimes your presence is just enough. So that's what's going on in Kenya right now.
Right. So yeah, tell me a little bit more about the financing part of things. So who is financing this project, and how did you get this guy to finance this project? And like, is it non-profit? Is it for profit?
So when you're in action doing good deeds of some sort and you're trying to bring regional transformation, all you got to do is tell the right people. And there's money that is in accounts, in rich people's accounts, that they have pre allocated towards ideas, and they don't have anybody to give it to. So the point is um, you have to show that you've got momentum, you've got a plan, and you've got some place to actually put the money. So the point is, once you've developed your plan, it's just like running a fund. If you don't have your fund docs ready, you don't have your plan, you don't have your thesis, you don't know what you're doing, money's not going to come to you. But if you
Mhm.
design a plan, write it out, make a budget, explain how it's all going to work, then people fund it. It's just the same. This is how it's just done. Whether nonprofit, for profit, whatever project you're doing, you don't wait till you get the money. Money's not going to come until you've thought things through, till you
Mhm.
put boots on the ground, until you've done some legwork. And now people are like, yeah, we've got money to fund that. And so I made a side comment at one of my conferences, and they said, oh, we've got a whole bundle of money that's set aside for ESG. We love emerging markets in Africa to help them get going. We'll write a check. And that's how it went. So right now I'm in the process of gathering that check, and then we'll put it to work.
Right. Um, and so these people that are investing with you, is it for them? It's for profit or non-profit?
My understanding, it's their ESG segmented money that is nonprofit,
Okay.
but some of these projects do make a profit. So I have to work out those details with the group to say, hey, you want some return? Do you want no return? That I can't answer. I don't know that answer.
Right. And so all of this project is in Kenya right now, right?
That particular one is. There's one in Nigeria for other things. There's some in Uganda. There's some in Libya. There's some here in my hometown.
And
Um,
you're all doing them yourself as
well,
an
let me
investor.
yes, let's define that. So Robert Kiyosaki has the grid. It's E for employee, SE for self-employed, and then there's a line, and on the other side is B for business, I for investor. So when people are like, "How are you all doing this?" I'm not. I'm not an employee. I'm not self-employed. Let's level up like 6 levels. I run a business or I run an investment. And so as you empower the local people that are on the ground and you run it like a project and you fund them with the money and they do the work, that's how it gets done. The
Hmm.
locals who live there do the hospital build. They pave the roads. I'm not out there on a big black tar machine paving roads. Like I don't know why people go like, right, Jared, how are you paving roads? No old man like me is paving roads. Okay,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I facilitate, I empower, and I get the money and I put it where it needs to go. It's almost like, well, Jared, how'd you get the Coke out of the machine? I put the money in, I hit D3, and it came out. And I
Mhm.
drank it. I didn't make the Coke. I didn't ship it there. I didn't keep it cold. I didn't market it. I didn't buy this machine. Other people did that. So I guess what I'm saying is let's reformulate people's minds to say you don't have to be A to Z in the supply chain of nonprofit work. It's just like you live your whole life. I didn't make this electricity we're using. I didn't make this iMac. I'm using as a team, lots of different people coming together so we can enjoy and do good things. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess I want to remove the false narrative people have of why I can't get started. You can. It just takes you going and then saying, well, how can I help? And
Right.
basically, you're coming alongside as a helper, not as the employee, the self employed. You're really the investor. You're investing into the vision of the local people, which, by the way, once they get someone like you, they celebrate. They're like, you're the greatest thing ever. What did you do? You just came and you believed in people and you funded them and you raised money for their project that they need to increase their economy, their well-being, the lives of mothers in this case. And then they think they give you credit like you did it, but you didn't do it. But what you did is like if they were struggling to push, let's say a block up a mountain, you came along and you helped them get it to the top and you helped push it over.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but they got it like all the way up close to the top, and you come and they're out of gas, they're out of strength, they can't do it, they're getting discouraged, they're losing hope, and you're coming along and you're like, all right, let's do this. And somehow your presence invigorates them, and then yeah, and then they like credit for you doing it. And you're like, no, I didn't, I just came to help.
Well,
You
I
just need a little strength.
it's true, but at the same time, without all the millions that you're bringing in, there would be no project.
Well, true, but if they didn't have a project, I'd have no millions to bring.
Yeah, but you're still like you're giving all the money. Like without money, your project is just a piece of paper. So you're
Well,
bringing the like you're making this project reality. You're not just like helping them a little bit.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's how I see it. But yeah, I can see what you're saying. But yeah, all I'm doing is I'm encapsulating, crystallizing, explaining their project, and then I'm pitching it to investors, and then they're like, "Yeah, we've got 700 billion in profit this year. We've got 125 million available for ESG. You're asking for 25. I probably should have asked for 50."
Right.
So
So
yeah,
tell me about right now you're doing a 25 million project in Kenya. Now
yeah.
tell me about your $1 billion project that's coming in this October, I think.
Well, that's completely separate. This is my hometown in Kennewick, Washington, in Tri Cities, and this again, the city has what's called the Port of Kennewick. The Port of Kennewick is in charge of guess what? The ports. So the airport and the river port. And there's two properties they have that they want to develop into a master plan community. The airport. So just think if you think how big a landing strip is at an airport, and then dig up the runway, and then build neighborhoods in there. So you know how they're usually like crossed like that. They
Hmm.
got like a T going on. So just imagine you dug up the runways and you built neighborhoods in there. And so they thought through and subdivided every house parcel, every commercial spot, spent millions of dollars prepping it with architecture and the rules of how they want it to look and all these things. And I said, "Yeah, I'll build that." And so again, I'm partnering with the local people that have spent a lot of money prepping, vision casting, doing the master development. And then I'm saying, "Hey, I'll raise the money to go build the stuff." And then I did, and people love that level of commitment, and so the money is available.
Right. So it's not in Africa at all. That project.
No, this project's where I live.
Oh, oh, okay.
Yeah. So this airfield reconstruction is like a couple miles from where I'm sitting, right here in my hometown. So my hometown of 300,000 people is going to have $1 billion worth of development over the next 2 to 3 years. Well,
Hmm.
what will that do? Well, a lot of housing, a lot of taxes. The local governments will love me, uh, and economy will be boosted. All sorts of great things. The drywallers will have work. The finishers will have work. The roofers will have work. The framers will have work. There'll be new businesses pop up. Like it's like a incubation explosion. And
Right.
then look at all the taxes they pay. So the local government's got money to do more roads and more projects. So it's just like an infusion of energy and capital and good vibes, right? So that's the project I've got here in my hometown.
And then like the deal with these people is they give you $1 billion, you do all this project development, and then you split the profit, something like that, right?
No, it's a loan, and I pay back the loan.
And what's the interest?
4%.
Okay, so it's a loan of $1 billion, 4% you pay them back, and then you keep all the profits.
That is correct, my friend.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it should at least make me a billion in profit or 2 billion. Depends how the market goes and different factors I'm not in control, but it'll make a
Mhm.
lot of money.
Right. So now let's go back to the beginning of your journey, because like how does someone start, right? How does someone goes from being a normal dude to building $1 billion project and building skyscrapers and what you're doing and building a food mills in Africa? So tell us about like when you were young and then like your turning point and your journey.
Well, it begins with character development. I don't think you could do this without the mind of God. So I gave my life to God, and He directs my steps. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be talking to you today. I wouldn't, honestly. I'd work some middle level job and, just drinking and partying and drugging and, just basically being that kind of guy. But my life got turned around. I came back to church. I came to church drunk, left the service, had to sit in the kids program. Jack Daniels was reeking out of my pores. I went home and my friend's like, "How was church?" And he was smoking a joint and he passed me the joint. I'm like, "I don't know. It was crazy." He goes, "Well, are you going back?" I'm like, "I think so," because I hit the end of what the bar could offer me, and it really couldn't offer me anything other than a hey, hello, a high five, and let's just drink a lot. So when I gave my life to Christ and became a Christian, then my mind started opening up of what could I do for other people instead of what could I do for myself. Here's the thing you could take away at 20 years old. If you stop thinking about what you need and you start thinking about what your city needs, you'll be on the right path. Because if you meet your city's needs, by default, you'll have plenty of what you needed. So if people say, well, that's all I need and I only need this, make your need bigger. Make your need bigger than what is focused on yourself. When you start focusing on how can I serve my community and what does it need, well, look, it'll make you $1 billion. You'll change the city and you'll have way more personal wealth because you decided to take care of a city's needs instead of your own needs. Everybody's like, well, I just want to take care of my family. I just want to have a retirement. I. So JFK famously said, ask not what your country could do for you, but what you could do for your country. So when you get a life of service and a mindset of I need to make my city better, then you start taking on for-profit projects you wouldn't have taken on because it's not about you anymore. You take them on because you got to make that money to then do that nonprofit project. If you want to repave all the sidewalks in your city, where's that money going to come from? Well, you're going to get, if you decide that's what you're going to do, let's just make it up. Let's just say that's what you're going to do. You're going to say, okay, that's $18 million, and that'll give my whole city brand new sidewalks. Let's say your sidewalks are awful and people can't walk and it really is limiting people's ability to get around and, whatever. And you're like, all right, I'll pay for that. You just decide to do it. And then you say, okay, what do I need to do to make $18 million? You start asking around to say, hey, look, you talk to the bigwigs of your city. I need to make $18 million to pay for these sidewalks. I don't want handouts. I want to do projects. And they're like, well, if you take this shipment here of this product and you find a way to get it to California, I'll give you 50%. And you're like, done. And so you get inventive, you get creative, you get you get activated on solving problems and providing value. But you need a goal that's bigger than yourself, and it needs to be impossible. A taste of impossibility definitely helps. And then you run at it full bore. And that's how you do it. You just get outside of yourself. You say, I'll be taken care of. I'll be fine. I'm going to start focusing in on my city.
And so what was your first project, like the first good deed or like development non-profit project that you did?
It was in Kenya in 2007, and we started Growth Group. God reaches out with these hands. It's an acronym. And what it stood for is a small business microfinance incubator. And we funded business ideas, which I taught them how to write a business plan. I gave them like a 4-pager. And then I started funding and taking a risk and sending $500 to each applicant. 500, 250, 3, 4, 5. And then they went to work, and we had a 93% success rate. So that was the first thing I started doing, which changed whole communities, because now let's just say I did 300 of them total, but let's say just 10 in that neighborhood. What would happen in your neighborhood if 10 of your neighbors got a business that was activated and making money?
Hmm.
That economy in that local neighborhood would go up. So you think of Silicon Valley. I mean, look at what happens when you concentrate excitement, business, successful business in a location. Things take off and it attracts people. Right now, that's Miami. Miami is experiencing on a large scale what I'm talking about, what I did years ago on a small scale. Everybody's going to Miami. They're moving to Brickell. That's where the money's going, the crypto's going, the hedge fund managers are going. Everybody's going to Miami. Why? Good climate. It's attracting wealth. It's like it just becomes critical and it just takes off. So that was the first thing I started doing in a very small way that helped change whole neighborhoods and communities.
Right. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about this. So in that moment of your life, you were still working,
Yeah,
and then you were giving like half of your money or like a quarter of your money to this kind of charity that you built. So was it like you explained to me earlier yesterday that it was kind of a pool of money that was kind of self-sufficient, and then you didn't choose the business, but the local chef choose which business to fund, and then the
yeah,
business were kind of having a contract that like 10 or 20% of the profit made by those businesses funded by your pool of money went back to the pool of money, so that it was self-sufficient and it was bringing constant cash flow the more business it's funded. So yeah, how does that work? Like, what is that, and like, how do you do that?
well, first of all, it takes you to go put boots on the ground where you want to go. It takes coffee, tea with the local leaders, and then you discuss ideas. And it just seemed to be the right fit that if we could do a business incubator, and what we decided was up to $500, they'd give us a business plan, and we'd start with the leader of the village or the community. We start with them, whoever they are, because they're the example, they're the model. And then that stretched them because some of them had never had a business, and then they had to learn new things. So we started with the leader, and then the leaders, and then we began to trickle down to the kid on the bike who wanted a business as well. And we required them to give 5% a month into the general fund locally there, held by the leader. And when it got up to $500 out of all the businesses we helped start, it would self-fund the next one. And then so therefore it became self-sufficient.
And so only $500 by per business.
Yeah, which is about 500 days wages. So it's all relational. $1 right now is 134 Kenyan shillings. So your dollar in Taiwan, maybe not Taiwan, Thailand, Vietnam, Ecuador, lots of countries, your dollar's worth like a ton of money. It's gold.
Hmm.
Okay, so the way I came up with it is how many Cokes can I buy with $1? And at home, not one Coke. But in Kenya, like 2.5 Cokes. It just shows you the buying power that you have that is not being recognized by you.
Hmm.
Your money is a lot more powerful in different nations. And so
Right.
some people just sit here and trade currencies all day because they're doing exactly what I'm talking about. So I
Yeah.
can't go to England and do what I'm doing. I would
Hmm.
need like 150,000, and then the exchange rate would give me 120. I'd be losing money. So in different nations, I can't do what I did in Kenya, but I can do it in Kenya. I could do it in Uganda. I could do it in Nigeria. I could do a lot of African nations because the dollar is really powerful. But other nations, I can't do it in. So it's just happened to work out that way.
Right. And so how old were you when you first initiated that project?
We went there I was 25, and then I went again when I was 27 and 29. And it was just a natural observation of like, hey, we could probably do this.
And so basically anybody can do this, right? Anybody who's
Yeah.
like who have like a 100K, 200K dollar a year job that is feeling generous because of God or because of whatever reason, they can just go to Kenya or whatever country in Africa where the buying power of the dollar is huge. Then you went to talk to the local business chef. You arrange some kind of a legal entity, and you just send like wire transfer every month of like 5K, and then
About
it,
3K. Yeah.
about 3K. So it's is it like anybody can do it, right?
Anybody could do it. You just have to, it may cost you everything to do it. Look, your why has to be strong. If you don't have the why, everything we're talking about, it ain't
So
going to
what was your
happen.
why?
Huh?
What was your why
Regional transformation.
and why?
Uh, it came from fasting for 3 days and praying and asking asking the Lord, what do you want to do with me? And so getting alone with God by yourself and saying, God, why am I here on this planet? The why of life, right? Well, what are we here for? And the reason people are all upset is they don't have the why. They don't know why they exist. They're part of the machine. They don't like it, but they keep doing it. They're not really alive yet. That's why the Bible calls it becoming born again, because you need a fresh reset of this ticker. Otherwise, everything I'm saying ain't going to make no sense to you. And you're like, well, I don't understand it. It's cool, but I don't really get it. Um, but once you become and you ask you basically, for me and for everyone on the planet, my opinion, as you submit yourself to Jesus, who we just celebrated Easter, who died, rose again, he's got the number one selling book on the planet. Fact, the
Yeah, yeah,
Bible
100%, yeah.
is the number one selling
Of
book
all
on the
time.
planet. He's the number one talked about figure of all time of history, and people blow him off and they use his name as a curse word. And you're like, really? I don't know if you do that about Tony Robbins. I don't know if you do that about whoever else is your guru, right? Just start cursing with Tony Robbins. Tony. It's like, what are you doing? You sound like you got Tourette's. Just it sounds stupid, honestly. But it comes naturally to people that don't follow him. So once you begin to give him your life and say, look, I'll become a follower of Jesus. I'll read the Bible. I'll actually do what he says. I'll read the number one best-selling book in the whole world, and I'll submit my life to this. Then you get activated. Not everybody's going to do what I do, but you may do what you're called to do as part of regional transformation of making your city better.
Hmm. So you were fasting and you were praying to God for 3 days straight.
Yeah.
And then you had like an awakening moment where God said, like, you must do regional transformation.
What I heard was, I'm calling you to Africa. I'm like, okay. So I didn't want to share. We had a meeting at the end of the 3 days. We gathered everybody together that was fasting. And they said, well, what did you experience? And people were sharing left and right. And I did not want to share. I was embarrassed. As a brand new Christian, I didn't understand the culture. I didn't understand exactly what I got myself into. And I didn't want to be like judged or made fun of. And so I just felt this overwhelming urge to like share it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I just sheepishly got out. I think I'm called to Africa. And everybody goes, yay! And they come and they rush me and they lay hands on me and they pray for me and they celebrate it. I'm just like, what is happening right now? I was just enough that I got it out of my mouth, let alone everybody. Because I just didn't want negative. I didn't want people like, oh, whatever. You just think you did, all that crap people say when you try and do something good. It went completely the opposite, and they celebrated, they championed it, and I'm like, well, okay. And so then I began to turn on my radar. Lance Wallnall calls this the reticular activation. So once you buy a Jeep and you're driving around a Jeep, you notice Jeeps everywhere. because now Jeep is on your mind, right? Or whatever brand you're wearing or whatever thing you're doing, right? I have an RV now. Now I'm looking at every RV that drives, like, oh, how big is it? What's it got? How many ACs does it have on the top, right? So your reticular activation kicks in for Africa. And so I'm looking, I'm pinging, bing, bing, bing for months, kind of just walking around like sonar, just looking for opportunities. We had a guest speaker show up. He goes, I'm taking a team to Africa and I'm taking these 6 people. And I was not on the list. And one of my acquaintances was. And I'm like, I think I'm called out. Can I go? I want to go. And so I chased him down
And how
and
old are you? How old are you?
21.
Okay, continue. Yeah.
And I chased him down and I said, Steve, I think I'm called to Africa. I prayed, I fasted, I felt like Africa, and you're going. I really want to go. And can I go? Please, 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 please. And he looks at me and he pauses and he goes, okay, you could go. I'm like, yeah. And so I just celebrated. And he told me later, he goes, when I paused and I was looking at you, I'm like, yeah. He goes, I was wondering if you're going to be a pain in the neck or not. And I decided you'd be all right. I'm like, okay. So I went and it was like 7-day trip and it was fun.
Right. So what did you do in that trip?
We went to Uganda to Kampala and we went to, what was it called? Robert Kayanja's mega church. And we taught them about how to hear from God, prophecy, and just doing a lot of ministry, praying for people, doing different services, and staying in the best hotel. And the leader goes, this isn't exactly the African experience. So you're going to have to probably come again and not stay in the nicest hotel in Kampala, watching March Madness and ordering pizza. It's not exactly the normal African experience. And I said, well, I went to Africa. I'm done. I did what God asked me to do. I'm finished. And he goes, no, I think you got more to do than that. So, and he was totally right, obviously. So I've lived in mud huts. I've stayed in nice hotels all the way down to mud huts. I've been a part of driving through riots. I've seen all sorts of crazy stuff. But yeah, so that was the beginning of how I got started. Is you find what it is you're supposed to be doing, and then you sometimes have to press in to start the journey. And it may not just come to you on a silver platter. Sometimes you got to go get that thing. You got to get your hands on it.
Right. So now you're 21 years old. You went to Africa, um, and then at 25 years old, you did your first nonprofit um project, like your
Yeah.
business funding project. What happened between 21 years old and 25 years old? Like, did you go back to Africa? Did you fund schools, hospital? Like, what did you do?
I was in training, so I was in church planting school. After I got a 4-year degree in management information systems, and then I went for training on how to do church planting. And then what happened? 21, 22. I just got more training and more experience back home, kind of related to what I thought I needed. And then I got married at 25, and we asked for wedding gifts in money to pay for our plane tickets and our expenses while we were there. So we used all of our wedding monies for to go. So again,
Mhm.
your dream and your vision in life often costs you everything you've got.
Yeah.
So what I did between 21 and 25 is I got I found my partner in life who also had a call to Africa. I got more training, and then we went together.
Okay. So you did not go back to Africa, or you did, but
I went 21 and 25.
okay, okay. So
Yep.
that was kind of your preparation period.
Yeah, a little prep. The first one was just an introduction.
And then tell us about how you have no degree at all in engineering or in nuclear power, and then you got a nuclear power engineer job at a nuclear power plant without any qualification whatsoever. So tell us about that, because that's crazy.
Well, it helps to be smart. So you got so listen, sometimes I find cracks and I go forward in them. So uh 2007 I moved down to Arizona because it was just a time for a change in our life. And my father-in-law had been in the nuclear power industry for like a long time.
And how old were you at that time?
27.
Okay.
And I had a lot of computer. I did some artificial intelligence way back in the day before it's ChatGPT 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's nothing like it was now, but it was like a barge simulator for the Department of Defense to like simulate barges going down the river. And so I got a lot of programming experience. And then I applied, and it was just a bunch of turmoil happening at that time. They're about to pull the keys from the operators and shut down the plant because they had violated some design basis issues and codes that they were required by the NRC to be maintaining, and they didn't. They fought. They doubled down on their mistake, and then the NRC is like, "Yeah, this makes it worse. We're going to put you in column 4, and the next step is we shut you down, and 3 million houses lose power." So they fired a whole bunch of people. This plant had like 3,500 people, maybe 3,000. They fired a whole bunch of middle level, all the upper management, and so everything was like in flux and turmoil and blah, running around with their heads cut off. I put in my application, I got hired, and then I did what I did best. I made application databases. I made reporting systems to track our work. Nobody knew how to do that but me. And then they said, "Here, why don't you write a closure package to prove work was done?" And so I became a good technical writer.
So
And
so
then
you were not really an engineer.
I didn't go to school for engineering. No.
No, but like this job, you were working as a nuclear engineer or as like an IT.
Technically, it was in engineering, and but I just focused more on the IT side. But there's a heavy IT emphasis in engineering.
Yeah, 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 of course, yeah, but it
It's
wasn't like
actually
nuclear
higher
engineering.
than the engineering. It's weird. You go to school to be an engineer, and then they're like, "And now you got to know computers more than we didn't teach you any of this, and now you've got to actually model everything on a computer. We never taught you how to do it." So just because college focuses on one thing doesn't mean real life focuses on that same thing. So I actually had the skills to pay the bills with a Z on what they actually needed versus what people went to school for. So, and then I learned all the other stuff. I learned all the systems. I'm an engineer type mind at heart, so it was easy. And then I got qualified. I got all my certs, all my qualifications, and then they moved me into cybersecurity, which isn't too far away from management information systems at all, which is basically computer systems. And then all the stuff in the nuke plants are old tech that's got like one 4-digit password on it. So look, I was just the right person at the right place at the right time with the right skills, and that's why it worked.
And then you went from that, from being the manager of the IT system of like 7 different power plant, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, it was called STARS, and I was the cybersecurity project manager for 7 nuclear power plants that were all the same vintage and style PWR, pressure water reactors. And I went around to all the different sites and saw how they were implementing the new cybersecurity rules so that we wouldn't get hacked and so that the power plant wouldn't do crazy things if Russia decides to hack it. So that was my job. And then God called me to come up here to Washington State from Arizona. Spoke to me and my wife. It wasn't just me. It was both of us together felt a joint call to move to Washington State to start what's called as an apostolic center. And what that is, it's a headquarters for regional transformation. So then I started working with nuclear was done at that time. And now I'm just working with counseling and meeting people on the street and praying for people and basically more humanitarian stuff. So I went from high tech to no tech to people.
And you went from
And
like a high paying job to like basically a charity.
yeah, exactly. It didn't pay very well. So that was a big so I'd work 2 jobs. I'd find side work at night and do the nonprofit Christian Apostolic Center stuff during the day. And so I did that for years until I got a prophetic word at a conference about house flipping. And then COVID hit, and then I flipped 15 houses, dominated the market, learned how to do all that, became a general contractor, and then learned how to gut houses to the studs and build them back up. It's not actually that hard once you get into it. It's really not. And then I got commercial properties, and then I bought a strip club to shut it down. And then I bought an abandoned, I didn't tell you this, an abandoned hospital that was full of crimes and prostitution and violence, kicked all those people out, gutted it, and then turned it into a men's transitional home out of prison, Department of Corrections. And so it's a 6-month program where they come out of prison, they get reacclimated to life, job skills, good environment, Bible studies every day, praying for them. And then they graduate the program and go back to general civilian life, ideally, and they don't reoffend is the point. Recidivism is the word that the special word for committing crimes twice. Recidivism. So I got one of those. That's a large facility. That's a story in itself. And then we also have a women's home, identical vision, coming out of prison or mental hospitals, giving them a place to stay for 6 months to kind of help ease them back into life, and then look for jobs for them and get them placed. So those two are in operation along with my apostolic center. And then I'm doing these huge projects to pay for everything so that there's plenty of money for all the nonprofits and etc. So, yeah.
So tell us more about your mindset, right? Because your mindset is obviously like really different than like almost 99.99% of people. So you're working as a project manager at 7 different nuclear power plants, so you have a really high paying job. And then you have a calling and you abandon everything to go work for basically a non-profit, and then you work like 2 side jobs, side hustle to pay for your life while you're doing this non-profit. So what is this calling, and like what happened, like why did you leave your high paying job to do work on the streets?
So it all goes back to when I became a Christian. So when you become a Christian, you give up your rights to everything. It's like joining the army. They shave your head, you get a number, you go to basic training, and they tell you where you're going to go. Right? Isn't that how the army works?
Yeah, I
Pretty
guess.
much. Yeah, pretty much. Right? You are not your own. And so when you become a Christian, you are not your own. You join the Lord's army and you leave everything behind, including your sin. And Jesus took sin upon himself on the cross, paid for your sin. You acknowledge that and you say, I'm going to follow you. And once you follow him, the Holy Spirit fills your mind, fills your body. You get a new mindset. That's why it's called born again. Like the light bulb turns on, bring, and you stop becoming a drone that just is a selfish creature, just trying to survive and scurry around the planet to have enough resources for yourself. And then you're like, maybe I should transform this planet. And so you go from self to like, let's do this. And you get a vision to change the whole planet. And then what you're seeing is that choice being reaffirmed several times over and over and over again. And you're like, well, why'd you do that? I said, because I got redeployed.
Yeah.
And you're like, but why would you do that? I got redeployed. I'm not my own. So that's the common thread.
Okay,
so,
so like
yeah,
you're praying God, and then you're hearing him say like the next mission that you have to do.
yeah, he's pretty loud about it. Like, I don't know. Sometimes people are dense, but like when all the doors shut in your life, you're like, what the heck is going on? God's recalibrating your life. You may not know how to hear him, but like you're seeing the effects of when God shuts doors and opens doors. And sometimes you're doing something, you're super successful, and then bam, all the doors shut. Boom, 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 boom. And you're like, what is going on? And then the prideful person took credit for all their success when it really wasn't them. And then they take it real bad when all the doors shut and nothing works. And they're like, what? I suck. I'm horrible. What? It's all because it's still all about them. But once you realize when God makes the sovereign choice about your life, and like you are made to do this, and then you're off on your own and not really listening. And then he's like, yeah, I gave you time to figure this out. So since you couldn't, I'm going to really help you now and just shut all these doors. And sometimes it's really painful, but it's because you weren't in obedience. You weren't in alignment. You weren't listening. And God's like, yeah, I gave you some time. I gave you this person. I gave you your mom. I gave you your friend. I gave you all these things. And you're like, nah, I'm going to do my own thing. And he's like, yeah, we're done with that. So you could be in lockstep with him as soon as you hear his voice because you're friends. Then you make adjustments and then you leave that hallway where he doesn't have to shut the doors, or you could block him out say, I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what you're saying. You're not God of my life. And he's like, fine, I'm still shutting the doors, but I warned you. And he shuts them anyways. So,
So
yeah.
when you're talking about like the voice of God, you're talking about like the events in your life, right?
It can manifest in events. And sometimes it's just like, go hug your wife and tell her you love her.
Okay, yeah.
It's not always major. We're kind of focusing on major life moments, but it's not. It's a relationship.
Hmm. And so then you went to do this church work to help people in the streets and everything. And how did you go from that to doing $1 billion projects in Kenya?
Well, it became a mindset shift, and actually, I thank Black Card for that. So to fast forward through things in 2019, after 5 years of doing street work, I'm like, I need to pay the bills better. I went to a conference, got a prophetic word through prayer about doing business and contracting. The next day, an intern came and said, I think it's real estate. I took the word to heart. I started studying Jerry Norton on house flipping. And then I bought all of his programs and I did it and I killed it and I won. And then I got into commercial and then I said, hey, I need more money than what I could do on my own. I paid $30,000 to join the Black Card community. I learned about funds. And then I learned if you have a $5 million fund, it's not really actually big enough, or 10 million. And so they're like, really around 50 million to 100 million is where you want to be. I'm like, well, if I'm doing 100 million, let's do 650 million. Because that project with the city, the Port of Kennewick, those airfields, that's like 1,000 houses. How much do you think 1,000 houses costs? So what it did is it took the limits off of my mind of what was possible. And I said, if money wasn't involved, what would I do? And so I just took money out and I said, I would do this. And then the vision alone, whether it happens or not, blows people's mind because they're like, how'd you take the money off? I'm like, I just did. I just decided to say money is not going to be a limiter in my life. What do I need to accomplish first? And then what does it cost second? So money is not first. So the Bible talks about you could either serve God or money, but you can't serve both. This is an example of that. Once you serve God, you're like, hey, what should we be doing? He's like, fix the city. I'm like, all right, let's fix it. And they're like, what does it cost? $2.3 billion. I'm like, $2.3 billion? Because money now serves me. I don't serve money. So now I'm the master of money. Money's not the master of me. So you're looking at a guy sitting on cash, not under cash. I sit on cash. I make cash obey me. I don't obey money. See,
Right,
that's the difference.
right,
And you see, this is the difference of getting stuff done and then saying I don't have enough money. It's
right.
yeah.
So now but you did raise money though. So you went to pitch wealthy people, and like who are these people? Are they family offices? Or are they high net worth individual? Or are they like in link to the government? Like who
No,
are they?
it's a bank.
A bank?
It's a bank looking for people like me.
Which bank?
It's a bank in the U.S. There's actually a couple banks involved, but there's people that work in the banking industry, the finance industry, that have programs just for this. Actually, after World War II, when we destroyed everybody's countries and just bombed the living crap out of each other, and they're like, how do we pay for all this? Because we nuked Japan. Germany bombed the living tar out of England, and we all destroyed Germany. And France was probably a heap of ruins too, right? They kept the Eiffel Tower up, but they probably looted, killed, murdered, a whole bunch of other people. So after World War II, the smoke is still rising. They're like, how do we pay for this? So they got economists together and they created financial systems to make a lot of money quickly. And then they said most of the profits after a certain point have to be used for nonprofit purposes. And so there are financial systems in place designed to transform and rebuild cities that have been around since we started and ended World War II. And so
Mhm.
because I've been doing these things, it gave me the right to approach those people and they're like, you're exactly what we're looking for. We're going to fund everything that pops into your head. So that's how it works. You do the vision first and the money attracts to you.
Mhm. And so the $25 million project that you're doing right now in Africa, is it U.S. banks that invested it, or is it African banks?
No, it's U.S. banks, and that's still in process. I don't quite have the money. It's with them. It's been reviewed, but due to Credit Suisse, SVB, and all these other banking, it's like throwing some loops into some stuff. So I don't know where it is right now. And if they don't come through, I'll have to just go make the money myself. Either way, it's happening. So that's the last thing I want to say. Have a vision, commit to it, and don't be discouraged if like plan A falls apart. There's B, C. You got 24 other letters after A and B, right? There's 26 letters. So so you got all them plans. Look at all them options. And you just got to decide it's done. And once you decide it's done, it's done. And then how it gets done is details.
Right. And right. So you're also talking. You also mentioned like that you're gonna build your own bank.
Yeah. Because
So
I got
how do you build your own bank, and how would that work?
well, you join a mastermind for $300,000 and then they tell you how to do it. So at this point in life, I pay people to accelerate my life. I don't try and Google it and figure it all out of myself. I pay the experts and I trust their guidance to lead me into the next step so I could get a bank or whatever I need in life quickly. And I don't try and reinvent the wheel and become the expert. I'm not an E. I'm not an SE. I'm an I. And so as an I, and if you drift back to SE, you're going to get discouraged because
Mhm.
you're being cheap and you're trying to Google it and trying to figure it out all yourself. So I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be cheap. I'm going to pay you what you're asking for, but then I'm going to expect to have what I need at the end. And so
Right.
as you live as an investor, you pay for acceleration.
Hmm. So in in Africa, from like right now, you're doing something, but what else have you done like before today? Before this $25 million project, have you built houses, hospital, roads?
Well, we really focused on those 300 businesses for several years.
Okay.
That was the main push. So we did that, and then we took some exploratory trips in Nigeria. We took some exploratory trips in Uganda. So look, I got a lifetime plan here. I'm 42, so I got another good 40 something years left to be doing this. So I'm kind of mid project.
Hmm.
I've got 20 years in. I've got another 40 to go. Um, so yeah, we're staking out other countries, looking for different opportunities, and then now we're really getting headway in Kenya with this big project. But before the big project, it was small projects of starting businesses with 500 USD.
Right. I mean, it's still like you said. It's still it was a lot for you at the time, and you told me this yesterday that you said God don't look at how much money it is; it looks at how much money it is in proportion to how much you have. And so
Percentage.
at that time, you were giving like a quarter or like a third of your salary away to
Yeah.
charity.
Yeah, sometimes. Well, beyond that, because I'd tie 10% to my church and then give another 30% above that, so probably 40% at a time. But because I could, and I'll be there again soon. But yeah, it usually your dreams and visions cost you everything that you've got. I've had to
Hmm.
empty my bank account several times, fully, 100%, to do this trip or that project. But isn't that the way of life? Doesn't your dreams always cost you everything? So I look at it as leveling up, and you've got to leave everything in that level behind, and you have to go to the next level. But everything in that level needs to stay put. So
Right.
when you level up, you've got to leave everything in that level. It can't make it to the next level. And besides, it's not even good at the next level. It's retarded. You don't bring your kindergarten toys to second grade. You don't bring your stuff from second grade to fifth grade. You don't bring your stuff from fifth grade to high school. And if you do, it looks really weird. So leave the stuff at the level that it is, and you level up. And only you could go to the next level.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And so, yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here. But can you tell us a little bit about your book and your podcast?
Yeah, so I got a book. It's called An Apostle Guide to Mission. It's for anybody that wants to start going on international missions. It's kind of the starter guide. Probably have to book a call to go over some particular coaching for whoever is reading that. I do have a coaching program that's located on my Teachable account. You can find it through Burning One's Supernatural School of Ministry. I have a coaching channel there. I also have online classes at Burning One Supernatural School of Ministry on teachable.com. And then I have the podcast Grow in God, which covers a variety of topics, but also how to go do things internationally and succeed. So those are different avenues
Mhm.
to learn more.
You talk a lot about being an apostle. So, what does it mean for you? Like, what does the word mean for you, an apostle, and why do you consider yourself an apostle?
So the apostle is what it is. I mean, I don't like people redefining words to see how they like to believe whatever it means
Yeah.
to them. It's an actual military term from Roman and Greek era where they would send out Greek apostles and Roman apostles to make the new area Roman or Greek. Hence, in England, you have Bath, England, that has a Roman bathhouse because the Roman apostle went there. I said, "You're French Canadian. French people went to Canada and made it French. It wasn't
Mhm.
French before that. We went to America and made New York because there's a York in England, and now we made it New York. Okay, so this is how things are done. Walmart does it. McDonald's does it. They go all around the world and make a new McDonald's. And what do? They bring the fries, they bring the golden arches, they bring the culture, right? So there are apostles at work everywhere. It is a very common ancient term, but in modern times they just lost the definition. There are no more, but yet there's functioning apostles all over the world. Bill Gates, apostle, Elon Musk, apostle, all the tech titans, apostles. They
So,
lead the way. They're innovative. They're creative, and they forge a new path for people to follow them.
right. And so, how are you an apostle?
That's what I do. I do it through leading through real estate, through church planting, church development. It's a gifting, and it's innate. It's not something you just decide you are. God makes people apostles. You don't make yourself one.
Hmm.
It's just a natural gifting that you'll have that will work with God's calling on your life or without God's calling on your life. It is without repentance. It is a gift. It is something you've received, and it's an ability, a natural ability or supernatural ability that God gives to people to help transform things. I would say, like Pablo Escobar was an apostle. He was an evil apostle, but he was still an apostle. I mean, you can't do that kind of stuff without gifting and order and strategy and an ability to run that kind of organization. So just because you're an apostle doesn't mean you're good. It just
Hmm.
means you've got the gift. And so it's how you get graded on how you use the gift, not on the gift. The gift was a gift. It's what you did with the gift and how you used it.
Right. Right. So, I mean, thank you for coming in. Again, I would love to have you back. You know, when you go back from your trip in Kenya, when or once your $25 million project is done, or when you get your $1 billion project done. So yeah, thanks for coming in, and thanks everybody for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Abundance Podcast. Take care.